profile. But first, let's welcome in Jerry Dowling, the nationally celebrated illustrator and National Cartoonist Society Newspaper Illustration Award winner. You've seen his work for over 35 years in the Cincinnati Enquirer, of course, as he chronicled the assembling of the Big Red Machine. Jerry, thanks for joining us tonight. This is one of my favorites of all time of yours. You really captured the flavor of what it was about.
Thanks for having me on, Denny. This cover was done in 1970 after the season ended, before the World Series, because they already knew about the Big Red Machine, and the Fleetwood Company called me to do this cover for their album, and they had Friday night to Monday morning to get it done and sent off to them, and we got it.
Yeah, as always, you deliver.
Yeah.
Your most recent work is a compilation of your views dating back decades of one of Cincinnati's most illustrious native sons, the one and only Pete Rose. Your Edgecliff Press publication, Drawing Pete. It is the definitive artistic work about Charlie Hustle. What role did Pete play in that Big Red Machine's success?
Pete was the catalyst of that team. Without Pete, there wouldn't have been a Big Red Machine as it was. I mean, when he moved to third base and Foster went to left field, that made the team. I mean, it made the team as powerful as it was in the 75 and 76 seasons. It was the Big Red Machine before that, but it didn't really become the real machine until Pete moved to third base.
Was Pete a dream for an animator, for an illustrator, just the angles, the haircuts, so on and so forth?
Absolutely. Pete with the heavy eyebrows and little beady eyes shoved up into his eyebrows, and he had this little bullet hole in his cheek. I don't know how that got there. But yeah, he was a natural to draw, and he changed through the years because his hair always changed. He had the long hair, and then he had a crew cut, and now the most recent drawings of him, he's almost got no hair, and what he has, he spikes it up.
Now, what was Pete's reaction when he saw this the finished product
of the book? We ran into him last fall at the Big Red Machine reunion, and he hadn't been told about the book. There was a miscommunication between him and his agent, and Pete saw the book, and he goes, "What the is that?" So I showed it to him, and he said, "Well," he held it up, and matter of fact, I put my hand on his shoulder. I said, "Pete, can we have our picture taken?" "Oh, sure, yeah." So he holds it up. I said, "Pete, can you smile?" And, "Oh, yeah." So there's a picture, and this is before he looked at the book, so his expression must have changed after that.
I would be interested to ascertain from him if he thinks these are fair portrayals, or have you, obviously your work has been out there for public display and he has seen it over the years. What did he think about some of your characterizations?
I really don't think he liked my stuff because he never asked me for an original until I did the whole team on the Big Red Machine. He did ask me for a copy of that, which was made into poster size. And I gave him a copy of that. As a matter of fact, I gave him 2 copies. He was supposed to get one signed by some of the players and just one for himself, and give the signed one back to me, but he kept them both.
Could you turn a piece overnight?
Depends how involved it is. If it's full color, no. If it's just a regular Sunday cartoon, I can do it in 3 or 4 hours. And
where do you start? I've always been fascinated by artists, and we think that some of the Jim Borgman, for instance, Mr. Warren, all the great illustrators that have come through Cincinnati over the years. Where do you start in an illustration?
LD used to start with blue pencils because they're non-photographic, but as technology advanced, you didn't have to worry about that anymore, and because things were scanned and the blue line didn't pick up. So we were just doing penciling right on the board, and actually some of the pencil lines on my board, I just inked over them. I liked them, even rough sketches. They looked fine and loose, so I just left them that way and just inked over them.
Much more with Jerry Dowling. We're visiting with Jerry Dowling, author of Drawing Pete. Jerry, you obviously have your favorite illustration relative to Pete Rose. I suspect I know what it is, but a sampling of some others that you seem to capture his zest for the game in one especially that you've designated as Cleared for a Landing.
Well, that was when Pete dived into the airport when he came back here from Montreal to take over managing the Reds. It was a fun one to do. And there's his hair. That was part of the caricature, getting that hair flying, because it always did when he dove.
You know, one time he told me he was bragging about his new head-first bobblehead, and he was explaining to me, I said, so you are like horizontal to the ground, you're parallel? He goes, no, I'm like this. I said, okay. But as far as I'm concerned, your tour de force was the Hit King segment cover that you did for the Inquirer. Explain how that came about.
That was from the 1985 season when he was obviously going to break the record. And I tried to do two versions. One was in the old style where you used what they call duotone colors on their reproductions, and full color. So I did Pete the way it would be reproduced in 1985, and Ty Cobb in duotone like it be reproduced back in the 1919, 1920 era.
But there seems to be more of a flow to this as opposed to sort of the more definitive straight strokes.
This, this was a painting, actually, not a cartoon. It was a complete illustration done with gouache colors rather than inks or double-tone boards, which most of the cartoons are done on. And it was a composition of that thing. It was the hardest thing to make it flow, make it read properly, and get the type in where it should have been, too.
And I think that you really captured, especially Ty Cobb's countenance there. This is a guy that you never saw in person.
Well, I had a lot of reference photos that I used, and they were good ones. And I used several. I didn't use one specifically, but I took certain portions, like his eyes from one photograph and maybe his mouth from another one.
Through it all, you have established a style that has offered commentary as well as a subtext to that, provided by the dirty rat at the bottom, which always seemed to underscore the piece itself.
Dirty rat is me. There's a comment in almost all of the later cartoons. I didn't use them for a long time, but other cartoonists were using a little character, so I got him. And his name is Dirty Rat, and he makes comments that tie in with his name. But there are comments that I want to get into a cartoon that the character themselves can't say. So I got this little character taking that part.
And I think back to Attila, the cockroach that Bob Brumfield used to.
Yeah, sort of, yeah. Except his wasn't a visual, but he referred to him in his columns all the time. Now,
we have a montage related to baseball here, but I think the Dowling style is also on display in a big-as-life version at Arthur's in Hyde Park. Now, you have seen his work, obviously, over there, if you've ever gone into Arthur's. I remember you working on that for literally months at a time.
I was there every Saturday doing customers. He had to be a regular customer. And Denny, I don't know how you didn't get on the wall because you spent enough money in there. But you were there a lot, and they were good people. They were wondering who was going to go on the wall next. It was done from the center to the edges, so it always looked finished.
And took you how many years?
Oh, I worked on it. Well, periodically we took a break because it cost a lot of money for the owners, and they wanted to take a break. And I worked on it for 8 or 9 years.
Incredible. Well, now you know the man. You've seen his work. Jerry Dowling, Drawing Pete, is available where?
It's available online at Edgecliff Press and also in selected bookstores like Joseph Beth in Norwood and in the Reds Hall of Fame. And if you bug the other bookstores enough, they'll probably order it for you.
Jerry Dowling, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Dennis.
I'm glad that we could share your insights into. And one more question before you go. You are a voting member of the Baseball Writers of America. Yeah. Your views, your relative views on Pete's merits for the Hall of Fame?
I get asked that question all the time, and I have a different perspective on that than the writers, because he lied to them. But he didn't to me, because, you know, my cartoons, I didn't have to talk to Pete. I didn't have to interview Pete. So as far as I'm concerned, Pete is eligible. When he's eligible, I will vote for him.
Jerry Dowling, thanks for joining.